Hello, hello, and welcome back to Retrieving Sanity with your podcast host, Keegan, and this is your podcast for all mental health, addiction, recovery issues, and topics. And I've got a question for you. Do you trust me? Do you trust others? Or do you trust yourself? Well, today's guest is Clay Moffat. He is an ex-Navy weapons tech turned behavioral coach and author of The Trust Trap. He spent 15 years helping high performers break toxic patterns, stop outsourcing their sanity, and take radical responsibility for their lives. Clay doesn't sugarcoat it. He teaches the neuroscience of trust, the psychology of betrayal, and why most people keep screwing themselves over. If you've ever ignored a red flag, sabotaged your own success, or trusted the wrong person, this episode is your wake-up call. So, Clay, how are you doing today?
Doing really well, thanks. Really well, thanks, Keegan.
Of course. Sorry for that little bit of long-winded intro, but I read it and I thought that it was powerful enough that I should go ahead and convey it for the audience because it just does you justice, I think.
No problem whatsoever. And if it kind of gives a frame as, I guess, to what the episode and what we're going to be talking about. So I think it's kind of important. And I think it also sets a very important tone, which is, you mentioned one specific word, and this actually became a talking point with regard to the book and the subtitle, Stop Screwing Yourself Over and Rewrite the Rules of the Game. So in that, there is either a conscious understanding or at least a subconscious understanding that you always have a role to play.
Okay.
So that you're never always just the victim. There's always some element, no matter how massive or how little, tiny, teeny little thing, there's always some element of ownership that you need to take in every single situation.
Is that kind of going along with the whole phrase of like every inaction is an action within itself?
That is part of it. And it's also to do with every single relationship requires more than one individual. And so to make any relationship work, so like my frame of any kind of relationship, so whether it's with your partner, whether it's with your friend, whether it's with your kids, is that it requires two people giving 100% each.
Gotcha. 100%.
So it's my responsibility to give you 100%, and it's your responsibility to give me 100%.
And I'm guessing that's where a lot of the strain comes from, is whenever it's not 100 both ways, right?
Yeah, there's that. The strain also comes from something much deeper than that, which is a breakdown of alignment, or the alignment was never there to begin with, or the alignment was thought to be there because you and I have been best pals since we're 5 years old. We grew up together. We're best mates. Our families kind of hang in the same circle. We've got the same kind of values growing up.
Yeah.
And we both say that we value trust.
Okay.
And trust is important to us. And we're now going into business, right?
Yeah.
So we're starting this business venture and like, okay, you say trust is important. I say trust is important. We're good. Like, we know we're good. But trust to you means, you know what? I'm going to show up and I know that no matter what, Clay is going to have my back no matter what I do. And I say, well, no, trust means something different. Trust actually means to me that you're going to check in with me because you trust my opinion enough that you're going to check in with me before you do something. So while the surface word is the same and we think, yeah, it's the same, what it actually means to us is completely different. And so then you start getting this massive fracture because you've gone and done something because your version of trust is I trust you to do things. And you've broken my version of trust when you didn't even know what my version of trust meant.
Ooh.
And then it's like, well, you betrayed me. And then you say that I betrayed you. But really, there was no betrayal in the beginning because there was never an understanding what trust actually meant in the first place.
That hits me in a couple of spots that makes me rethink a lot of things really quick. So before we dive too far into this rabbit hole that is trust, why don't you give me a little bit about yourself, your background, and how it is that you came into finding out, well, trust is so important?
So in a nutshell, I was kind of a piece of shit for a long time. I was definitely coming from a place of victimhood when there was nothing to be a victim about.
Ooh, what do you mean by that?
So I joined the Navy. I had a pre-existing issue with alcohol, right?
Yeah.
I was hospitalized at 13 for drinking and sculling 2 bottles of vodka.
Holy
But
cow.
don't ask me why. I can't tell you. I have no idea.
You're a
I
teenager.
was an idiot. And
Yeah.
I went, like, definitely, there's no sugarcoating that. I was a complete idiot. End of story. And for whatever reasons, like, whatever the reasons were, that was a stupid thing to do. It really was, right?
Yeah.
Like, to the point where the doctor told my parents that if I had had, like, a shot or two more, I would have died because I would have needed a blood transfusion, and they didn't have my blood type at the hospital.
Whoa. Holy
So,
cow.
like, it's an idiotic thing to do, however you want to frame it. That then, like, continued to perpetuate, and I had a problem with that. Well, basically, push come to shove, I didn't learn how to manage my emotions or to process emotions. And so where I had, like, end up having this build up and build up and build up, and then it kind of just, the way I learned to deal with it was, oh, just drink and numb everything, right? Or destroy everything, actually, is what I was doing, right?
Yeah. Yep. Been there.
There's many people that have, my man. Many people that have, right?
Yep.
I was just fortunate enough not to actually let it kill me. It's a miracle of God or the universe or whatever you want to say that I'm still actually here. But I am. So now I'm like, okay, let's make it happen. So with this process, right? I annihilated myself getting drunk. Then I joined the military, and I continued to drink. And in the early 2000s, when I joined, one, the culture was still very heavily oriented around drinking. And you finish work and go drink, and you be stuck at sea for like 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 13 weeks, 16 weeks. And then you come and you get 4 days off. What do you think you do in those 4 days?
Drinking.
You're drunk for 4 days, like constantly, and just hammered drunk. So I used to say the word paralytic drunk, and I had a lady get like very upset at me about it. I'm like, well, no, I got so drunk that I couldn't move my limbs, and I couldn't actually I was literally paralyzed. So I was a paralytic drunk. I'm not using it as a derogatory term against anyone who has special needs. I had done that to myself. Again, it's idiotic stuff. I didn't know what to do with myself. But to the point, like it got to the point where I was on duty in the Navy, and I got drunk on duty.
No.
And so, like, this whole trust mechanism, this is how it kind of cycles in. I got my direct supervisor came up and asked me if I drank. I said, yeah, I did. And he's like, you're an idiot. Like, I'm going to deal with you. We're going to keep this in house, but you're in deep shit.
Yeah.
Like, okay. All right. Anyway, 30 minutes later, I'm standing in front of the CO. It was not kept in house. So even though I was the moron that drank on duty, even though I'm the one that broke all the rules, this guy betrayed me. That's what I had in my head. Right? Because he told me he was going to take care of it in-house. So I'm like, okay, yep, I'm in trouble. It's going to happen. And then 30 minutes later, I'm fronting the CEO for drinking. So I'm like, you know what? I'm backpedaling.
Yeah.
No one ever saw me drink. No one ever saw me do anything else, except for one guy who gave me the alcohol, but he didn't even see me drink. He saw me taking it out somewhere else. So there was no proof that I'd actually drunk. Now, I had got so drunk that I ended up vomiting on myself in my bed in the mess. And so I cleaned up my sheets and threw it in the washing machine, which is why, like, it all came bubbling up anyway, right?
Oh, jeez.
And so I managed to get out of it, fortunately.
Okay. Wow.
Or unfortunately. Like, maybe if I like got my ass punished back then, I would have been able to snap out of something, but I don't think so. I wasn't in the place mentally, right?
Yeah. I feel you.
That then brought about this thing like, I can't trust my supervisors. And then other things started happening where, like, okay, I can't trust these guys now. Then I can't trust these guys. And so I started building up this thing about, like, I can't trust people. It tainted my whole Navy career. Things then, that kind of like shadow carried with me into oil and gas. And then it got to a point where I passed over for promotion maybe 5 or 6 times when I was an engineer working in oil and gas. I was like, okay, this is just junk, man. Like, these people keep telling me they're going to promote me. I was like, there's no way. So I went and started studying language and linguistics to understand how I could make people do what they said they're going to do. Right? This is how I got started in coaching. It had nothing to do with helping people. There was no, like, positivity there. It's like, I'm going to figure out how to manipulate you so you do what you said you're going to do and you promote me.
Semantics.
This is how I started coaching, right?
I love it.
Victim. Complete and utter victim. Anyway, I spent like 2 years going down this path and learning pickup and like the social engineering side of things, because that's how you really learn language. Like, that's an instant response of whether you're winning or losing. When a girl slaps you in the face and goes, okay, let's go home together, you got a very real idea of whether it's working, right? Like, it's instant. So for 2 years, I just like struck out constantly. And the more I dove into linguistics, then it kind of led me into NLP and hypnosis and change work and this kind of stuff. And then I had to start changing.
Ooh.
And when I started changing, lo and behold, the language started working. Like this crazy phenomenon started to happen. Like, and then it started to slowly dawn on me, like, well, hang on a sec. You're not being such a piece of trash anymore. Like you're starting to change. So people are actually responding to you. They're not responding to the language. And then when I really started to dive into it more and more and more, and I've done a lot in the way of self-development, right? I've definitely invested more than $500,000. I've done multiple mushroom trips. I've done ayahuasca trips. I've done like a lot of things to help facilitate the process of healing and like awakening myself and getting in touch with more of reality than this whatever facade that I built inside my head.
Yeah.
And along the way, it just became a revelation of this whole process. Like, you were the author of all your pain, Clay. And if you only look in the mirror and take ownership of that, of all the contributions that I've made.
Yeah.
And as soon as I did that, like the instant I did that, it was like, wow, like I actually have power to move again. Like I have freedom. And it's such a contradictory thing to think about. Like I didn't even realize that I was doing this to myself. And it sucks, man. I hate having to say it, and I've had to admit it because people ask like, oh, what's this transition? What was it for you? I'm like, I now have to admit, like, I was a victim, man. I was the victim for like 27, 28 years. And that's not a nice thing to admit, right? Like to spend 27, 28 years. And I wasn't necessarily an unconfident person. I didn't have a traumatic past. I didn't have horrible people like that. Got into a fair few fights at school. I was a delinquent. I was, did the stupid thing we spoke about with alcohol, had that relationship with alcohol.
Yeah.
I didn't have an overly traumatic past. I didn't have anyone abusing me, beating me, kicking the crap out of me every day. I wasn't emotionally neglected or abused at home. Like there was nothing like that. So it never even occurred to me that I could potentially be victimized. Yeah. So when I'd been doing it to myself and looked at that, I was just like, well, like, what do you do with that?
Yeah, you can't do a lot because you're you, right? You're the common
Exactly.
denominator.
So you have to own it.
You can't really run away from yourself that easily, right?
Well, I tried, man, for 27 years. It didn't work too well.
Well, I mean, like, once you see the mirror, you definitely can't run away from the mirror.
You can't run away from the mirror, no.
Yeah.
You can't.
Man, that is such a great story. I resonate with it on a lot of levels. Thank you very much for opening up, being authentic and vulnerable with us, because that is where healing comes from for ourselves and for anyone listening, So trust. Holy crap, man. Like, it's weird because hearing your story just really made me go like, okay, yeah, like I really need to pick your brain a whole bunch. And at the same time, it's weird because you're saying these things that you're like reading my mind, and I just don't know how else to ask. How do you rebuild trust with yourself first?
Simple. It's so simple. The cool thing is this, right? So we were talking before about the how is super important.
Yeah.
The how is super important.
Okay.
Though to make the case of how to do it and why it works, we need to actually go into the why and the what. Because otherwise the how is just going to fall on deaf ears.
Okay.
So I'll go over it very, very quickly.
Okay.
The why is that the definition of trust that we have is broken. It's flawed.
All right.
And it's flawed because there's this perfect storm. I promise you, it's a perfect storm of the evolution of our brain and our brain not being able to keep up. So we exploit a loophole on ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So what starts happening is through linguistics, through evolution, the way I teach it and the way I say it is like we create brackets and frames. So let's lose the example before. Right? We've been best friends since we're 5 years old. We're growing up. It's going great. You're a trustworthy guy. Yep. So what I do is I automatically put you in the trust box. You are now in the trust box. I have this thing because your brain, my brain, wants to learn everything as fast as it can and automate it.
Yeah.
Why? Conservation of energy. That's it. From an evolutionary standpoint, we are not lazy. We are economically surviving. So as much as we can conserve energy, we will. So if I don't always have to pay attention to Keegan every single time I see him to make sure that he is not going to screw me over, I'll put him in the trust bracket. He's safe.
Oh, okay.
So you are now freeze-framed as a static, rigid internal representation inside the brain that marks you as safe.
Okay.
So the second your actions start deviating from that, I start auto-correcting and go, no, he's in the trust bracket. He's safe. That's not Keegan. He'd never do that. So we start creating these things, and we do it to ourselves as well.
Huh. Weird.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does.
So you have a self-image, right?
Yeah.
Let's say, for example, I don't know, I'm not going to say it's for certain. Let's say you were picked on at school.
Okay, yeah, I was.
And but let's say like excessively.
Okay, no, thank you.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Right. And you were picked on excessively. And more so than most, to the point where other kids would actually feel sorry for you for how bad you were picked on by kids at school. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That then starts shaping your self-image, because these are social years where we grow up. So now you see 40-year-old men, 50-year-old men that still think they're ugly, that still think they're unattractive, that still think they're fat, that still have confidence issues. Why? Because they're still attached to that internal representation back then. That is still guiding them. So we do all these things to ourselves until one of two things happen. One, we put ourselves in the system that allows us to grow through grit and force and a conscious way of going forward. Two, which sometimes happens, situations arise where enough circumstances happen that counteract the belief. So, for example, an ugly guy, right?
Yeah.
This guy struck out with chicks in high school. And then for whatever reason, this is a horrible example, please just bear with me. He gets onto Tinder, right? Sudden, he's getting all these matches with beautiful women. And he's like, what? What's going on here? Like, they must be playing a game. But it just keeps happening, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And then he starts meeting up with these girls, and they're like, oh my God, like you're like the first guy that hasn't catfished me, you're this, you're that. And now he's starting to get into this like massive concurrent evidence where he didn't have to approach these women, which he was like petrified of doing. But now he's getting this information that is contradicting, and it's so much contradiction. And this is where the difference matters. The contradiction has to happen from a place of authority. So if he gets a bunch of women coming in that he doesn't find attractive, or that other people don't seem to be attractive, telling him how beautiful he is, I'm not going to do anything. But if he gets a bunch of women come in that he finds attractive and that his mates are like, what? There is no way you got that chick. And she's like, yeah, no, he's an attractive guy. That will start to slap and collapse the belief that he's built and start to fracture the internal image. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It totally does. Yeah. That's very strange. And whenever you said that it had to come from a place of authority, it made me realize a lot about myself and some of my past. It's whenever I've had those same moments of having contradicting beliefs and evidence presented to each other, I'm like, no, because, and I always wondered why, because like my logical brain says, here's the evidence, and it is all checkmarked green box, like this is what it's supposed to be, this is what you're looking for, and then my brain still goes, nah. And it was because I didn't see that person, that figure, whatever it was, didn't have the authority to contradict my own beliefs. That's strange.
Right.
Huh.
So you didn't see them as an authority.
Yeah.
Others might have. Yeah. But here's where it's really crazy. So the closer someone is to you, the less you're going to actually see them as authority.
Yes. Oh, I was about to say, does that go into why people that are close to me can sit there and give compliments or like reassure me? And I'm like, yeah, no, never mind. And people are like, you should just take a compliment. It's like, okay, well, I can learn to say, well, yeah, thanks, but it doesn't necessarily feel any different sometimes, you know? Like, it does whenever I can take it genuinely, but it took a weird, like, forcing that. So I guess that was kind of like the force, that first part that you were talking about, correct? Huh.
So when you start to do that, when you're starting to get compliments in an area that you're not used to taking compliments, the way I used to explain this to people when I was working, it's like, okay, if someone gives you a gift and they're sincerely giving you a gift, would you reject it?
No, you can't.
You do if you reject a compliment.
Oh. Oh. Ouch.
Because it is a gift, and it's one of the best gifts you can be given.
Yeah, I would have to say so. Yeah, agree.
And a lot of people don't see it as that, though, right? They see it like through a filter, and if their self-image in that area is, let's say, degraded, they can take it as like, oh, they just want something from me, or they're just trying to get something from me, or they're out to get something, so they're giving this compliment, so I have to reciprocate.
Yeah.
Instead of just seeing that a compliment can just be a compliment for no other reason than they're like, wow. Like, to go slightly off track here, but still within the realms that we're talking about. The first time I went to the States, I was in Morgan City in Louisiana. I was doing some training down there.
Okay.
Don't go there, right? Just don't go there. It's not a place to go. I've been to some really cool places. That was not one of them.
Okay.
But
keep that in mind.
there was a gentleman there who also worked on the rigs, and we were doing this training, and he said to me, it was surreal. I can still picture it right now. I came in for the training, and he said to me, "Hey, man, that's a really nice shirt. No homo." I was like, "What?" I had never heard like that. I'm like, "What does no homo mean?"
No homo.
And he's like, like just, like it's a good shirt, but like I'm not into you, so I'm just letting you know, like there's nothing gay about it. I'm like, "Hey, whoa." So you're telling me that you are that insecure that you think if you tell me that this is a nice shirt that I'm gonna fuck you? Like, really? Like, that's where this conversation goes? Like, you can't just pay a compliment to someone? I promise you, man, like, just because I am a male doesn't mean I'm going to try and sleep with you because you tell me that I look good in this shirt. Like, it's not how it works. It's not.
Yeah.
It blew my mind. But, like I said, like, it's not so much of a sidestep. Like, if you are that concerned and that worried about something that you need to kind of preface things, like you need to, like, wrap in a thing, then the compliment was still genuine, but even though the compliment was genuine, it kind of took away from the compliment because the guy then had to come up and like almost defend why he gave the compliment in the first place.
Yeah, it is kind of weird, isn't it?
It's just different, man. Everyone's got their own reasons for doing things, right?
Yeah.
And I'm never going to say that my reasons are the best reasons or they're better than someone else's. But it is sure interesting to watch how people communicate in this world. And it gives a lot of fun ways to go, wow, like this is a whole side of things that I had never encountered before in my life. And like I am much richer for having that experience. Because when I went back to Australia and I told my friends about it, like, there's no way that happened. I promise you, man. I swear on my mum. I promise you it happened.
Oh,
so
man.
different folks for different strokes, right? Everyone makes the world go around a different way.
Yep. I was kind of hoping that you were going to say that you went up to your mates down in Australia and were like, "Hey, nice shirt, no homo." And they
no, because it's got no context.
Yeah.
Right. So they wouldn't. It wouldn't have landed.
Yeah.
But when I explain the story to them, and then later do it to them like 6 months later, like it's okay, man.
Yeah.
Hey, man, they're nice swim shorts. No homo. Like that, then like now they can get it, right? Like, I mean, you're such a douchebag. But yeah.
So you said something just now, and that word was context. So how does context go in with trust necessarily? Because it is necessarily, context would be the contents of the trust bucket if it were a bucket, right?
No.
No? How would it go?
Because the trust bucket doesn't exist.
Oh, wait a minute. What? Trust bucket doesn't exist. Where do I put my trust?
No, so you don't. That's the thing. You never put it in people. You put it in patterns and you put it in outcomes. So the best example I can give you right now, and I do this, I'm not going to lie, I do this on every podcast, but it's the fastest way I can set it. Right now, we have started a relationship. When we started, like when I reached out to you, you said, okay, it sounds like you'd be a good fit for the show, and we're moving forward. We're now having the conversation.
Yep.
Right now, you can trust that I am going to give you everything I can to help your listeners.
Yeah.
I can trust that you're going to want me on your show because you believe I can add value.
Yep.
So the trust is in a mutually beneficial outcome, not the person. Right?
Yeah.
And so if my behavior over time is continuously consistent, then you can trust that behavior only as long as it's being current. As soon as that behavior starts separating, and there's no mutually aligned incentive for us to continue moving in the same path, you can trust that I'm going to continue to do what's in my own best interest, because that's exactly what I'm doing right now. And it's exactly what you're doing right now. And it doesn't make you selfish. It doesn't make you a prick. It doesn't make you an asshole. It's none of that. It's how we are as human beings. And it's a good thing. And so what it is, if you start looking at trust instead of being like this characteristic or this virtue, and you start looking for a more objective point of view as it's like a reciprocal agreement of an agreed outcome that might even only be subconscious, then you start realizing that trust has a timeline, and that timeline can span 30 years. It can span 30 minutes. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
But when you start looking at that, you're not looking for when people are going to be deceptive. You're not looking for when people are going to screw you over. You're looking to see if you're still aligned. And so as long as you're continually looking for alignment and checking in, do we have alignment? Do we have alignment? Do we have alignment? And you're checking in, oh, well, the behavior's starting to show something different. Okay, now it's something else. Okay, there's like 4 inches that's showing something different. Let's sit down and have a conversation, see if we're still aligned. Well, we're not aligned anymore. Okay, do we want to realign? No, we don't. All right, so let's separate.
Huh.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Whenever you lay it out like that, it's like it makes sense. And then there's still like that part of me that's like, that doesn't feel like what trust is, or rather not what trust is, but it's definitely not what I've been led to believe what I thought trust is.
Of course, it's a completely different definition.
Yeah. It's like
So,
part of me... I was
Go
just
ahead.
going to say it makes logical sense, but there's that part of me that's like, the feel of betrayal has been there, and it's like, no, I can't do that.
No,
know?
hold on to that.
Okay.
Hold on to that for a moment.
Okay.
Because we'll rip that apart now. So the feel of betrayal is there. So let's take a look back. Think of a situation where you got betrayed. You don't need to tell anyone what it is. Just think of something. We're not talking like the worst thing in the world, but if you want to go for that too. It doesn't matter.
Got it.
Okay. Now, can you put your hand on your heart now and say, looking back, there were no signs that there was a separation happening?
No.
Right. So you instinctively knew something was up, but you weren't paying attention because you were in the bracket.
Ooh.
So the betrayal only happened because of that loophole and because of the trust as a virtue. However, go back to the time at the very beginning before it split, and now start looking at through the lens of trust is a process and pattern recognition, and see if you can even hold on to the betrayal.
Ooh. Oh, that hurts too. Why does that hurt too?
It hurts because the only betrayal comes from yourself. And the cool thing about that is, the coolest thing about that, and I'm not joking, man, you can see the smile, like legitimately, is that if the only betrayal is self-betrayal, you take all the power back. It's all yours. You can never get screwed over again. You come back in the driver's seat.
I love that. So how do I do that?
Pattern recognition.
Okay.
But you have to pay attention. Now, there's multiple ways to do this, but the sharpest way to do this is A, look for congruence and incongruence. So the more you know someone, the more likely it is that you've got a good baseline for their behavior.
Yeah.
Right?
Hopefully.
You will have had lots of experiences with, well, I hope so, right?
Yeah.
Unless you've never been paying attention. Let's pretend we pay attention a little bit.
Okay, got it.
So you should have a baseline of what their behavior is or is not. And so you've got this idea. Now, the reason why I think a lot of people end up like cliff diving like a lemming and just like smashing themselves and going, oh, I got betrayed, is for the simple reason that, one, they don't understand nonverbal behavior.
Okay.
Number two, they don't know how to break down linguistics. And number three, that creates a perfect storm because now their conscious mind doesn't have the ammunition it needs to go, no, 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 no. What we're picking up subconsciously actually is indicating this. So because people haven't been trained to recognize nonverbals and because they haven't been trained to look at linguistic deception, right?
Yeah.
Although I think everyone on the planet, and this is the bold thing, would be familiar with the statement, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky, right? That is littered with things. So first of all, like he's distancing himself from it. He's also, there's so many things, like the cadence has changed, the way he's done. Like there was like 5 or 6 verbal indicators. His body language had shifted. His tone had shifted. There was multiple things that shifted away from baseline with that. Now, I'm not having a dig at Bill Clinton. Like I've got no crimes to do so, but I will use it as a very textbook example of how you can spot a difference in the baseline and in linguistics versus someone that's being truthful. That's purely all I'm using it for, right? Because everyone knows that sentence. It's like etched, right? It's crazy. So with that being said, you can start to pay attention to these things. And there are systems. There's systems that I teach, there's systems that other people teach, that you can start to learn to track nonverbals. And you can start to learn to track linguistics. And you can pay attention to these things so that when you start to feel or sense there's some incongruence, now you've trained your conscious mind to look at. So you're getting incongruence, and now your conscious mind's like, oh, actually, we learn about this. This is something we need to pay attention to, because it could mean in this cluster that they're being deceptive. So let's pay attention. A lot of the stuff in nonverbals, the linguistics is deceptive more so, but nonverbals is just highly indicative of stress. And the more stressed someone is, they're likely, like, they're going to become more stressed, the more they have to start to lie. Now, that could just mean that they're super uncomfortable about something and they don't want to talk about something. It doesn't mean they're deceptive. It doesn't mean they're trying to screw you over. It doesn't mean like, oh, like I'm out to get Keegan, I'm going to screw him and you wait and see. Like, it's not that. It's data points. And you're looking for data points that indicate a possible disconnect.
Okay.
And by tracking the data points, and by tracking the alignment and the congruence of what they're saying and what they're actually doing, you're going to get a very good indicator that you can start to move forward.
Okay. So would those data points be considered their behaviors or their actions based on interactions? Okay.
Yep. So the better you can baseline someone, the better your data points are going to be.
Yeah.
So, for example,
there
is now a fair few podcasts of me online. So there's obviously a lot of you host a podcast show, right? So I could track and I could watch your behaviors and your nonverbals, and I could build a profile. Just so we're clear, I did. Like, this is what I do, right?
Oh, no.
Well, that's what I do. This is literally what I do. This is how I help people. This is how I coach people. I try and build as much of a profile as I can so I can see, okay, what's going to help move them through this? What's going to help them get the result that's going to, what do I need to avoid? So you can start building these data points. And the better you can build these data points and track them, the better you're going to be able to see and interact with people. But more so, the better you're going to be able to see how congruent what they say is with the outcomes that they do. And that's the biggest and most simplest way that I think people can start tracking is, okay, if they say they do this thing, do they do the thing? And if they don't do the thing, how often are they not doing the thing? And if they're consistently not doing the thing, then it's likely that you can trust them not to do the thing that they said they're going to do, because that's the pattern. Now, also, if they consistently do the thing, you can likely trust them to do the thing. But when they start differentiating from that, you still need to pay attention. You can't leave them in the trust bracket. Get rid of the trust bracket. Don't have it. Recognize that that is your evolutionary loophole for self-destruction.
Ooh, man. Get rid of the loophole. Got it. Got to get that in my brain. Get rid of the loophole.
Well, you can't get rid of it. It's always going to be there, right? Because it's part of our language. So think about it this way.
Okay.
Trust is a noun. And what is it? A noun is specifically for trust, it is the verb taken and frozen in time. And the verb of trust is trusting. Right. So it's a process. And processes don't end, they continue. So how am I trusting this person right now? Or is trusting this person still in my best interest? Or how is this trusting this person affecting my life? Right? So now you start turning it back into a process versus me saying, okay, I'm a trustworthy guy. Look at me. I'm not a snake oil salesman trying to sell you this used car. It's a great used car, by the way. Right? That's not what we're talking about. But what I can do is I can start using language in my favor instead of going, okay, is this person trustworthy? Like, how is this person trying to convince me of trusting them? Or is there a benefit for this person for me trusting them?
Okay. Huh.
Even better, is there a benefit for this person trusting them that is detrimental to me?
Oh, I was about to say, could it also be spun around to what are the things that I can trust this person to not do? Or something similar along those lines? Because it goes in that same line. Like, you can tell someone to do something, but after, say, enough data points, one time is, I forget what it's called. Once is something, twice is coincidence, and 3 times is a pattern, correct?
Depends on the person, depends on the context. This is why context is so key. So you could have a context where it's just you and me and we do everything that we say. But then let's like extrapolate and zoom out. And now there's a whole bunch of other people. Our families are involved and like extended families are involved and our friend group are involved. And now there's elements that we didn't predict that were coming into it that are preventing us from doing it. Does it mean that you're not trustworthy and you can't trust a person? No. It means in this specific context, you can't trust them to be able to keep their word because there's external factors that they weren't aware of and there's other priorities.
Okay.
So for example, if I got a call from the school right now saying there's something wrong with my son, you could trust I say, Keegan, thank you very much. It's been amazing. I got to go.
Yeah.
And that's not because I'm trying to be a prick, but you wouldn't know that, right? Because that context has never arisen.
Oh,
Does it make sense?
Yeah, like if you didn't pick up the phone on the call or something, or yeah.
You see what I mean?
How am I supposed to trust you that you just went off camera? I can't hear anything. I can't see you, and you just the camera goes off or something. Like, oh, I guess he just he didn't trust me to produce a good episode or something. So
who knows, right? But you could. That's your internal dialogue going on.
Yeah.
Right. So what it could be something else. So the point is, it's never about what you can trust people to do or not do. It's about what are you trusting them to do and what are you trusting them to continue to do.
So you don't necessarily trust them with something, but you trust them with a process.
The trust is the process.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. Right.
Huh.
Because they could be doing a bunch of different things, right? You could be, I'm not using you in like general sense, okay? Not you specifically, Keegan.
Yeah.
All right. So you could be in an interview. You could be the best person in the world to have a conversation with because you're very approachable, you're very likable, you're very agreeable, and you ask a lot of really good questions. Now, does that mean that I could be, okay, he's a great conversationalist, he sits there, he understands things. So does that mean I could then be trusting of you to be a great salesperson?
Ooh.
Because those are all really good qualities for a salesperson.
I'm too honest.
Does it mean... Right, but you see my point, right?
Yeah.
So it goes across and it shifts. So there's a whole bunch of things. So context is really important. But then if it was a program or a product that you really believed in that had helped you, could I then now trust you to do it? Because maybe you could sell that because you'd had do you see it? So the context changes massively.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, man. Oh.
See?
Yeah.
And people get so confused about context because they think it's like, but something can be so different. You and I could be sitting and having a beer. I don't drink anymore. You told me you don't drink anymore. So,
no,
but let's pretend that we do, right? So we're going at the bar. Figuratively speaking, we're having a beer. We could have an entirely different conversation if it was just you and me at the bar versus if another person was on the other side of the bar, out of earshot, but they're just in the bar.
Ooh.
The context is different because there's someone else there.
Yeah, it's no longer like a us thing.
Right. Even though they're on the other side of the bar, they can't hear us, it will change the way that we show up. Yeah. Context changes so quickly. On a bright, sunny day versus an overcast day, context is different. Right? There's the music that's in the background that's playing, it could be songs that are completely depressive to either you or me, that is in the background that changes the context. Yeah. Like, context changes so rapidly. And there's so many external influences that can change how people show up that we don't even sure that we're aware of. There's a good example, Focus, the movie with Margot Robbie and Will Smith. Have you seen it?
I think so. It would have been a long time ago, right?
So, yeah, I think it's like 10 years ago, maybe. I don't know.
I'm aging myself.
But he's a pickpocket and a thief and a scammer and a con man. And so they're at this football game and they've been setting this guy up and priming this guy. And so the music that they're using, I can't remember what it is. I'm pretty sure it's Rolling Stones song, but the guy's saying ha 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 ha. Now, Will Smith goes and says that that's the number 5 in Chinese. I believe that's what he says. Ha is actually a number 5 in Thai. So you'll see people like in Thailand, when like someone's written a joke on Facebook, you'll see them write 55555.
I've seen that.
Because,
I was wondering what that was.
That's why, because it's ha. That's how you pronounce it. So 555 is ha 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 ha. So they're using that because it's subliminally in the background programming this guy to pick the number 5. Right? But that changed the context. So you see what I mean? Like there's so many things that can change context that are out of our awareness, and it just depends. It doesn't mean it's going to be massively shifting the context in the favor of a different way, but imagine, if you will, we're in that hypothetical bar, we're having that experience, we're having that conversation, and then I was driving a car and a drunk driver hit me and killed my fiance in the car, and we were listening to a song. And then that song comes up and I haven't heard that song in years, and that song comes on in the background in the bar. Change the context instantly.
Yeah,
you see what I mean?
You're not
like
good
there's
anymore.
so many ways, right? There's so many ways that context changes.
I'm so glad that you're actually hitting on this, because as a child and like growing up and everything, there was I don't know if it was like every high school or middle school, whatever, but people would always like ask you, what would you do if? What would you do if? And I was that kid that would always say, I don't know, just depends. Because I was like, give me the rest of the scenario. Like, I can't make a judgment call off of this. People left me alone because I wouldn't play that game, because I was like, give me context. And I always called them variables. But now that you put it in this term, context is just so much better. It is on point, and you completely changed the way that I view trust. And I know exactly where I'm going to start putting some of this to use. But real quick, we are getting close to the game show aspect of this episode. So before we get to that, do you think we'll be able to see you in the future? Because there is no way we can close this book on trust tonight.
Anytime, man. Let me know.
Sweet. Also, side note, profile. That is weird. Not really, but I hope I'm living up to the profile that you put in your head, I guess. I'll put it that way.
So the profile is not like, okay, this is the person. The profile is like just more tracking behaviors and tracking how you show up in the world and how you want to make a difference. And I can see that like with this process of what you're doing, like you're really wanting to build a powerful community of people in a place that's, I don't like using the word safe. Because to me, safe has kind of got a bad connotation when they do like talk about safe spaces on college campuses and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it doesn't really gel well with me. But safe is like a place where I think the better term than safe is non-judgmental. And I think so like people can accept you as you are. Like okay, you've got trash, you've got trauma, you've got drama, you've got junk, you've got garbage, luggage, whatever you want to call it, baggage, and that's okay. Like, it's okay if you've got that. Like, I've still got it, man. I spent, for a decade working on myself. I'm probably going to have for the rest of my life. And I'm definitely screwing up my son, like, guaranteed, right? Like, I can't not screw him up. I'm trying as best as I can, but I'm, going to do it anyway. There's a lot of really, really cool stuff that's going to come of it. And when you step into the frame of that trust is a process, and you're looking for if there's alignment. So I got to clarify this before we go. So if you're looking for alignment, you'll find it. Don't look for alignment. Because if you're looking for alignment, you'll start to feed the narrative that you're trying to find it where it's not there, right? I see it in a lot of, I've invested in some good companies, some bad companies. I gambled more likely in crypto and blah, blah, other things, right? And I see these guys pushing narratives in crypto. And they're looking like they're clutching at straws. They're trying to make their narrative come true, and they're pulling things out. Like you're really diving into the deep end of fantasy land if you think this means this. Like you're so far down the rabbit hole that you'll make anything fit your narrative. Yeah. And so be careful with looking for alignment. Just you're testing for it is the best way I could say. Okay. Right? It's like a science experiment. A science experiment is usually to prove, like, you can't prove something exists. You can only prove that it doesn't, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they can never say this is absolutely proof of true. When we disprove this and we disprove that and we disprove that. So you're proving by checking in that, okay, yeah, we still seem on the line. We're still going there. But you have to check in regularly. But don't go, okay, I'm going to find how we're aligned. Don't look for how you're aligned. Look to see if you're aligned.
Okay.
Make sense?
If. Not how, but if. I guess real quick, it would be like I could set little check boxes of sorts that have like a percentage, and depending on those data points from that person, that percentage changes constantly. And whenever
not really.
No? Okay.
You don't want to do that. So try and stay away from, like, you're doing what the brain does automatically. You're trying to shortcut the system.
Yep.
And it's okay. It's cool. Like, it's totally cool. Like, I teach this stuff for a living, and I catch myself doing it, so it's totally fine.
Because real quick, for me, trust has layers, right? So it's like, how far can I let this person in, and how far in that subject, right? So to me, that's why it's
Well, there you go. So there you go. Context. And how far in that subject. You just put context, right?
Crap, yeah.
So
Right.
this is the thing. That's why the checkboxes don't really apply. Because imagine trying to track all the checkboxes in every context of a single, like, on one person, you're going to have a meltdown, right? One person, because there's so many different contexts. I can't keep up. So instead of looking for something like that, just look for alignment. Is their behavior and their words matching up? Am I getting gut checks that are like, hey, pay attention? And if you're getting a red flag doesn't mean they're out to screw you. A red flag just means pay attention. That's it. Just pay attention. Look at what's going on here. Okay, because a red flag is letting you know the loophole's running. Right? So, the loophole's here. The static frozen image is there. So the red flag's like, pay attention. Keegan, hey, here, now, present, not back there. This person here today. You know what I mean?
Yep. Okay.
And then if you do that, then you don't need the checkboxes. Because now you look, okay, they said they're going to do this. They did that. Interesting. Okay. They said they're going to do this. They did that. Interesting. So now you're paying attention to what's going on in real time. Does it make sense?
Yeah. Yep. That makes a lot more sense, because I was going to sit there and say if I had a checkbox every single person, it would, no, it's not going to happen.
Brutal.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for everything that you've done for everyone in your circle in the world. And just, I mean, we will never know how much your words, our words, impact anyone and the rest of the world, and trust is one of those things that it's going to have a huge ripple effect. So with that in mind, Clay, you've already hit us with some uncomfortable truths. Let's make it interactive. We call this next segment Trigger Points. Here's how it works. I'll throw out some real life scenarios, those awkward, gut-wrenching, or just plain familiar moments we've all faced at some point. And you're going to call it like you see it. Is it a trap, something that keeps us stuck in old patterns, or is it a track, a sign someone's finally starting to trust themselves or others and make a better move? No filters, no therapy speak, no fluff, just you and whatever hard truth needs to be said. Are you ready to mess some people up?
Sure. Let's go. In a good way, hopefully.
Yeah.
In a good way.
All right. Trigger points. Number 1, you give someone a second chance because everyone deserves one.
Oh, okay. Context. Everyone deserves one as in you've been told everyone deserves one, or everyone deserves one because that's your belief?
Okay, because it's your belief that you've been raised with.
Trap.
Okay. And why
because not everyone is going to deserve a second chance, because a second chance goes off the fact that you're still referring back to your, this is in the trust bracket and they deserve a second chance. No one deserves a second chance per se, because if you're looking at it from the point of view of how we've been speaking about for the last, 40, 50 minutes, then you should, if you're coming from this lens, you would have seen the separation a mile away, and you would have seen the split happening, and so therefore they don't need a second chance because their path is on a different path to yours, so it's perfectly fine.
Okay, I love that. Ooh,
does that make sense?
Yeah, yep. Some people are not going to like that either.
No, a lot of people don't like it. But what I will say is this: I've had women who were abused by their parents and then by their partners reach out to me and go, "Your book And this process has given me personal freedom and personal power like nothing I've ever experienced in my life. Ooh. Because they had to take a massive swallow of their pride and then look at it from this way, which puts the responsibility back on yourself. But with that, you're good to go, right? Man. It's a double-edged sword. You don't take any responsibility, you get no power. You take all the responsibility, you get all the power.
I love that. Real quick, where can people find your book again?
TrustTrapBook.com.
Easy enough.
Yep. Simple. I try to keep it simple.
All right. Well, I guess I can trust you to keep trust simple. There we go. It's simple as the context can be, I guess.
I hope so, yeah.
Love it. Number 2, you speak your truth even though it might cost you the relationship.
So, you speak your truth. Is that a trap? No, it's not a trap unless you have not spoken your truth the entire time. So, if you're suddenly starting to change and now starting to speak your truth, then usually what's happened is there's a couple of things. One, there's a straw that broke the camel's back and the person's just had enough. But now they start to speak their truth, and they speak their truth out of emotion versus out of logic, and it starts to cause fractures. That's something that usually happens, and I've seen happen with a lot of couples, and I've seen it happen in business partnerships too. The second is that they've started undergoing like a growth journey, and they've had a huge amount of change. They've started setting boundaries in place. They started saying this, and what starts to happen is it's definitely not going to be a trap in that regard, because you'll start to create the boundaries necessary, and what will start to happen is you'll start to bleed relationships, like massively. And I think bleed's the wrong word. You'll start to hemorrhage relationships when you start to do this. Because what happens is people cannot manipulate you in the way that they used to. So if you've always spoken your truth, it's not a trap. Because if you've always spoken your truth, this is just how you are, it's how you get across, and people know that. So you're not really going to fall into a trap. But if it is this shift, it can be a trap because of the way that it's come about. Through how it's an emotionally charged thing, through it's like a defense mechanism. It's not a trap in that it will destabilize you, but if you've just started to change, then you were falling victim to the trap in the first place, because now you're no longer standing for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Definitely, that one's a double-edged sword too. All right, it depends on which side of the path you wanted to walk whenever you started walking it.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, I love that. A lot of people are not going to like that one either. All right, and number 3, you can't sleep before a big meeting, but can convince yourself it's just nerves. Why did I write that one? Because I can't trust myself to sleep before something big. That's why.
So with that, you're looking at it from a point of view of self-trust, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I don't trust myself to go to sleep because...
I have a big meeting coming up.
Context depends, because if they've got a habit of continually like sleeping through alarms, then it makes sense. If they don't have a habit, then it's more like a connection with anxiety and worries about performing. And so they're usually not going to set the alarm because like, okay, well, I probably need to do this and I need to stay up. So they say like they're not going to wake up in time, but really what's actually happening is like they're like destroying themselves mentally inside. They're churning and burning, like just berating themselves, and that's why they can't actually sleep. And then they get into the meeting, and like a lot of the times it actually works out just fine because they were fine and they had prepared and they'd done everything. It's not really a trap, because even though it is self-inflicted, and even though you could say it's a lack of self-trust, it's not really from the idea of this frozen thing in time, right? Not really.
Oh, yeah.
So if they're preparing, and if they're coming up to this meeting now, and if the meeting's like bigger than any other one that they've been in before, then they may need to do even more preparation, and so they're putting in more work, and so they're paying attention to what's going on now, and what's more, they're being present most likely, because a lot of the times people, if they look back on their past meetings, they've actually done okay. People tend to give themselves for starters, people tend to be their harshest critics.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yep.
To the point where I would often challenge people. One of my mentors told me this, and I was like, I think it's like just hits the nail on the head. If someone else spoke to you in the way that you speak to yourself, you'd punch the shit out of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it works really well with parents. So if you be happy seeing your son speak to himself or your daughter speak to herself in the way that you speak to yourself? And if the answer is no, then you need to change it, because they will. Because they're sponges and they're mirrors, and they will just suck it all up, and they will talk to themselves that way.
Oof. Okay.
Not a trap.
Not a trap. So more track?
No. It's more on track because they are tracking, right?
Okay.
They're tracking how much work they put in. They're tracking what's going on, and it's this huge important thing for them, right?
So
there are times where I don't even know why I can't sleep. I'm usually super excited about something, right? I'm like, this is going to be so much fun. And it's not because I'm going to worry about missing or sleeping. I'm just pumped from it. This is going to be awesome. I'm going to have so much fun with this. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And so there's like that element. So no, I don't think it's really a trap. I do think it's most certainly tracking. And they could actually just be tracking the wrong things. Because they could be tracking, okay, like I've done this meeting and this meeting, and they all went fine. Like they've gone fine, and these things are doing great. The counter to that is if they do have a habit of sleeping through meetings, then it's also still tracking. But it's not because they don't trust themselves. It's because they trust themselves to continue doing the thing that they've been doing, right? So yeah, it's definitely more tracking.
Okay, sweet. Thank you very much, sir. All right, number 4. You find yourself over-explaining your boundaries. Is that trap or track?
Neither. So that's not a trust trap.
Okay.
That's not necessarily. So it depends on what you mean by over-explaining your boundaries. So if we're talking about someone that has just started setting in boundaries, that might be considered as over-explaining because they are putting them in place because they need to justify them to themselves, right? While they're building their boundaries. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Whereas you've got people that have hardline boundaries and they don't cross it and they don't explain anything, but they're set in concrete and they've set them in there and they're rigid now. But when they're still like wet cement and they're still getting molded into where they need to go, people do need to stand up for them and they do need to over-explain it. And over-explain, go, no, this is it, this is why, this is how it's happening. Like, I have to reinforce boundaries from time to time with clients. I'm like, no, this is not okay, this is not what we agreed to, stop. And that's reinforcing.
Yeah.
And then some clients, from time to time, will keep trying to test that boundary because they want something else. And I said, no, that's not on offer. Sorry, it's not on offer. Not happening. And kids test boundaries all the time. Oh, yeah. Like, that's all they do. That's literally all they do is test boundaries.
Yep.
So it depends, right? Because you could say, like, a parent's always having to reinforce boundaries. Like, I have to do it every day. It's not a trap. I'm reinforcing a boundary. So, like, the context does matter, but I don't really consider it much of a trap. It's definitely tracking, especially if it's something new, because they're stabilizing the foundation for their boundary. And that's okay. I think that's a good thing.
Sweet. All right. I love that one. And we've got one more for this evening. And number 5, you walk away from a high-paying gig that doesn't feel aligned. Is that trap or track?
Well, no. I would say that's more of a tracking than trap. Because if you're tracking, so it's not feeling aligned, you're tracking in real time, right? You have to be tracking. So, like, you're paying attention. Okay, they said they were about, like, promoting peace and reducing the environmental footprint, and then the guy that's running the show is just about money and bottom line. And, like, you have to make money in business, or it's going to go down the toilet, right? You can't run a business in negatives forever.
No.
But you see that every single thing is driven by profit. That is not someone that's focused on lowering their ecological footprint. That's not someone that's focused on this peace and preserve. That is someone that is purely driven by dollars and cents. And so when you start tracking that, like, okay, I signed up for this. This is what I'm getting. The behavior's going here. Like, I'm out. That's definitely tracking.
Okay. Sweet. I love that. Thank you very much, Clay. Now that we've done our first round of, I already forgot the name of it, trigger points. There we go. I was about to say trigger trap, and trigger trap is definitely not it. So thank you very much, Clay, for playing our first round of trigger points. And you, my kind sir, have earned the title of the Trust Reclaimer and Pattern Disruptor Supreme. So, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your expertise in trust and everything that goes around with it, because there's a lot more that goes to it, and we need to learn all about it, and we need to learn it from you. So we're going to see you on in the future.
Sure, absolutely. If it resonates with people and they want to know more, I'll be more than happy to come back.
Oh, I know that they will want you to, because I know I want you to, because if it weren't this late right now, I would be like, hey, let's keep going. But Clay, real quick, do you have any last words for the audience this evening, or anything you want to leave anyone with? Any shout outs you got?
Yeah, I do.
Sweet.
The best thing that I could say is this. If you change the way you build trust, you change the way you build everything. Everything. If you think of every single relationship that you ever have, that you have had, and will ever have, trust is the pillar that builds all those relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's no internal trust and you can't check that, then you're not really going to be able to check the trust that you have with other people. So start with yourself first. Start tracking. And people say, well, how do you do it? As much and as often and as consistently as you can, do what you say you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's the simplest way that I could put it for people. If you say you're going to do something, try like hell to do that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because the more you can do that, the more of an internal recognition you're going to get from your brain, from your body, and from your whole system as a whole, that you can be trusted to follow through for yourself. And once you can trust that you follow through for yourself, you'll start to be able to trust your other actions, you'll start to be able to trust your other thoughts, and you can go through that point and actually have the life that you want.
That is way too good. Oh, man. Thank you, Clay. Thank you for that. That is some powerful wisdom right there. It's very profound. And I can't wait to have you back on the show. So, with that, thank you again. And everyone out there, thank you for listening to Retrieving Sanity on WDJY 99.1 FM. Be sure to check out Clay and go get his book. It is thetrusttrap.com. Trusttrapbook.com, correct?
Yeah.
All right, cool. And you can always find Retrieving Sanity on YouTube, Spotify, retrievingsanity.com, anywhere else you can find your podcast or video stuff. It's pretty much YouTube, I guess. And just remember, be a nice person. Try to be a decent person. It's really not that hard. Love yourself if you can. Love others if you can. Or at least try to a little bit more today. And as always, see you next week. Shalom.